After countless delays, mergers, and buyouts, it's finally here. Man, it's been a while since this thing was originally supposed to come out. How long's it been again?
It's been 84 years.
Damn! The New Mutants is brought to us finally by director Josh Boone and is the long shelved and delayed final entry into the X-Men universe. It was originally supposed to come before Dark Phoenix, and that was going to be the final, but you know, shit happens and here we are. We follow a group of 5 young mutants in a psychiatric ward type hospital learning how to control their newfound powers. All the while, something is amiss and their fears are being put on display for everyone to see. This is the X-Men movie that was supposed to be a horror movie, and it does have many horror elements. And while those elements are fun and well done, I wouldn't really call them scary. There's some neat horror moments in this movie, but never was I really scared. The first 2/3 of the movie reminded me a lot of A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors. A group of teens with issues locked up in a psychiatric ward, some supernatural-esque shit is going down, and in the end, they all learn how to use a superpower that helps them combat said entity. It's not exactly like Dream Warriors, but it did remind me of that movie a lot. At least the first 2/3. I found this movie to have more in common with the earlier X-Men movies than the later ones. It's a lot less spectacle and more about the characters. And that's something this movie does really well. The characters. It develops all the characters for the most part really well. You get to know these kids. You know what their issues are. Not all of them are happy to have these superpowers. To some of them, it's a burden. And that's nothing new in the superhero genre. The whole my power is a burden thing. But here, not everybody views their power as a burden. Some of them, yes, that is absolutely one of the main issues. It's the root of their issue is their power. But at least one of the characters uses their power to combat said issues instead. It's used as protection and an escape. This character doesn't see their power as a bad thing, they see it as a blessing. And I like that. Superhero movies typically go one way or the other. It's either a blessing or it's just a curse. It's never anywhere in between. Here, it definitely is. We see how it can definitely be a good thing, but we also see how having these type of mutations could be a big pain in the fucking ass too. But their powers aren't their only issues. These kids got some other really fucked up things that have happened to them in their lives as well. And while they are in this institution because they have these powers, we also get to see them work through some of these other real world human issues as well. That's what I really like about the X-Men, especially the earlier films and this one. It does focus on the characters, and while yeah, they're mutants, they are very human and relatable. You get where these people are coming from. You relate with them. Sure, some of them have crazy ass superpowers, and I can't say that we relate with that, but we relate with the human issues that they have, and that allows us to latch onto these characters all the more. The performances as a whole here are all pretty good. However, there is one issue I had, and it has to do with accents. It's actually 2 issues, but both dealing with accents. First, we have 2 characters that have foreign accents, and these accents tend to come and go at will. It's not really that big a deal. It didn't bother me too much, and you do see it a bit more closer to the end of the movie, but I'm not gonna lie, while it didn't bother me, it is very noticeable when it happens. It didn't ruin the performances or break the movie or anything, but it was there. The second issue I had with accents had to do with Charlie Heaton's character, Sam. Sam's from Kentucky, and much like any other Hollywood movie dealing with any character from the South, they gave him this most stereotypical Southern drawl accent there is. There are 2 types of Southern men in Hollywood movies. The traditional Southern gentleman, well, yes, ma'am, your hair, I do declare, is looking mighty fair. Kind of like Daniel Craig in Knives Out. And then the more common Southern hillbilly redneck. Well, I do say that right there, we gonna go on down to the creek, you gonna get on up in the pickup truck and give me a bone beer. Oh, come on over here, woman, get that slap down that, yeah, girl, you know what I'm talking about, Being someone who does live here in the South, I can say with confidence, no, not everyone here talks with one of those accents. However, that's not to say that they don't exist, but they are not as common as Hollywood would lead you to believe. And that stereotyped Southern hillbilly redneck is of course how Heaton's character speaks in the movie. Roberto, nut up! Yeah, that's a line in the movie. However, thankfully, Heaton's character Sam is fairly low-key and quiet throughout the majority of the movie, so it doesn't come across as too overbearing. I will give it that much. Overall, though, the performances here are in line with the better X-Men movies out there. there. We're not winning any Academy Awards here or anything, but we're not offending anybody either. Except for maybe with those accents, but hey, whatever. Our plot is fairly simple. I don't really want to go into it too much for fear of spoilers, but it is pretty simple and easy to understand. However, its execution is done very well. Boone really focused on the characters here so that when shit does start to go down, you care about what's going to happen to them. This is a very smart idea, especially seeing as how, as I said, the story is fairly simple. But that did give this simple story much more weight when we actually cared about these characters. Imagine that, good character development in the story actually helped out. Now, while the execution here overall is fairly well, I did feel like that there were some things missing throughout the movie. Nothing that made the movie confusing or anything. You totally get what's going on the whole time and it moves fairly smoothly. But there are some times that you feel like the movie's going in a certain direction and it just kind of stops and goes somewhere else. And I do know that all the hands that this movie passed through during this Fox-Disney merger, there probably was some editing and cutting going on. I had heard, I don't know how true this is, so don't quote me on it, but I'd heard that the movie originally was supposed to be rated R, which would make sense because this movie was originally supposed to come out shortly after the really big R-rated hits they had had, Logan and the Deadpool movies. They themselves also in the X-Men universe, that would make sense that they would want to have a horror movie X-Men be rated R as well. And while the movie we got is rated PG-13, I could see this movie easily being rated R. And it is a fairly hard PG-13. Maybe not the hardest, but it is not a light PG-13. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was quite a bit that was cut out after that merger to get this down to a PG-13 rating. Which, having the Mouse House pick up this flick and cutting it down to PG-13 really shouldn't be much of a surprise to anybody. The ending of this movie I more or less liked, but it did come across as a bit sudden. There's like a whole bunch of shit going on, it's really exciting, all kinds of stuff happening, and then bam, the movie's over. And I think that that was originally by design because this movie was supposed to be the first in a trilogy. And looking at it like that, the ending does have a little bit of a different feel. However, now we know this movie will never ever get a sequel. If we ever see these characters again, which I find unlikely, but if we do ever see these characters again, it will be in a totally different universe and it will not be by the same actors. It will be Marvel's versions now because they own X-Men and Fox. So we are never going to see a sequel to this movie, which kind of sucks because I liked where this movie went and I would have liked to have seen where it was going to go. But bitching and moaning about it isn't going to do a thing, so I guess we just got to enjoy what we got and speculate on what could have been. From a technical side, the movie's in pretty good shape too. It has a decidedly spooky look throughout that very much so fits its horror theme. The cinematography is very dark and creepy and really goes along with that feel. The CGI all looks pretty good and there is quite a bit of it. And while it is all really good CGI, it does look like CGI. You're not going to be sitting there scratching your head wondering if some of these things are real or CGI. No, it's very clear that they're CGI. It's good CGI, it doesn't take you out of the movie or anything, but it is clearly CGI. Some of the elements that are CGI in the movie, I totally get why they're CGI. They just couldn't have done in real life. But there is one thing in particular, well, it's actually one thing that's multiple throughout. When you see the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. That they didn't have to do CGI, but they did. I mean, I'm not too upset about it. It's fine. The CGI looked good. But this particular thing is more or less humanoid with some exaggerated features, but I feel like they could have done it practically, and it would have actually looked more creepy and scary. But they chose the CGI route, and yeah, the CGI looks good, and it looks creepy, I guess, but as far as scary, no, not at all. But hey, it's 2020, or, 1912, whenever the fuck this movie was originally made, and that's just the world we live in now. Guys, I surprisingly really enjoyed this movie. I was not expecting to like this movie this much. At best, I was hoping that it would be okay. But it's much better than okay. It was a really good fucking time. I enjoyed this a lot. With all the issues this movie had for the literal years that it's been sitting on the shelf, from the buyouts and the mergers and the shifting and the moving and the editing and the cutting and the supposed reshoots that did or did not happen, all that shit, I was really expecting a total fucking shit show. But what we actually got was a very tightly paced, interestingly told, well-performed, character-driven story. And while we'll never get that sequel that I really want now, that's okay, because what we got was really damn good. So good, in fact, that it is absolutely worth a rent.
All he wanted was this.
I have to return some videotape.
I was really not expecting this movie to be this good. At best, I was expecting it to be worth a stream, but when I was sitting there deciding how I was gonna rate this movie, I was really between worth a buy and worth a rent. I couldn't make up my mind. I went with rent because it's not quite worth a buy. It is a really good movie, but I think some of it may be that I was so surprised that it was so much better than I was expecting. So I tried to bring that down a notch and think about it a bit more critically. So when you get the chance, check out The New Mutants. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. So there it is, guys, my review of The New Mutants. Finally, if you enjoyed and want more content like this, hit that subscribe button and help my little channel grow. If you liked what I had to say, give me a like. If not, let me know in the comments below why. And as always, stay sexy, Salem.
Who's there?
So this is the last Fox X-Men universe movie that we'll ever get. It started all the way back in 2000 with the original X-Men and ran for 20 fucking years until this one. And I'm really happy that this one ended up being the last one and not Dark Phoenix. Because I really would have hated for the series or universe or whatever the fuck we're gonna call it to go out on that note. I am glad that this movie finally came along and put that nice cap... What the fuck? Oh shit! Bill and Ted 3 just came out. What the fuck am I doing here? Fuck this shit.